Unfortunately, this Landlord only takes $1.75 a bottle, not 40% of my gross salary. Hello there again and welcome back to Brew Report, where this week we're tasting a classic. This is Landlord by Timothy Taylor's. It is what they describe as being the classic pale ale. And for reasons we'll get into later, that may not actually be accurate. It's 4.1%. It contains barley, it contains gluten, and it was also not suitable for vegans. But for the rest of us, we've got an interesting beer ahead of us. So let's start with the packaging. And this is about as classic as it gets when it comes to real ale in a bottle. It's that sort of fairly standard profile brown bottle, the dark sort of rich racing green cap, and the image of the person pulling the pint here, the pub landlord, about as classic as it gets. This is not a beer that's actively targeting a new demographic. It's not trying to make beer more accessible. This is beer as it was back in the 18th century. So let's take a look at this beer now that it's out of the bottle. And you can see it's got this beautiful dark amber brown colour. Now, it's worth noting, just because the beer isn't pale, doesn't mean it's not a pale ale. Pale ale is more than just the lightness or the darkness of the beer. But as we'll discover as we taste this beer, there may be other issues with the way it's been described. We've got a fairly persistent, finely structured, just off-white head, very clear body, and just a little bit of effervescence there. You can see the bubbles coming up, popping up there. On the aroma, I'm picking up malt predominantly, and not the lighter, biscuity malt that you might expect from a pale ale. This is a richer, darker malt. It's brown bread, it's toasty, it's nutty. It's really delicious. What I'm also not getting from this is that citrusy, hoppy aroma that's being promised on the bottle. This is a much more malt-forward aroma, I would argue, than anything that's being promised there. First of all, the mouthfeel is really beautiful. It's buttery in texture. I'm not saying there's diacetyl in there, I don't think there is, but the mouthfeel is just like rich and soft and smooth enough that it becomes a really satisfying drink to gulp down. In terms of the flavour, there I'm picking up more of that darker malt, that brown bread, that nutty character. And again, this is why I'm leaning towards this not really being a pale ale. A pale ale, I'd expect maybe some pale biscuit malt, I'd expect some white bread, I'd expect those sort of lighter malt characters. This is much more malt forward, and it's much more prominent in the flavour profile. Thinking about other flavours coming through here, a little bit of dark stone fruit, very ripe plum, just a touch of that sweetness. A touch, again, of citrus, that maybe some orange zest in the mix here. But predominantly, I'm picking up that malt character, which is really why I feel this is probably best described as a bitter rather than a pale ale. Not that it's a bad beer, by any stretch. This is fantastic. I'm just thinking it's described wrong on the bottle. Thinking about value, I picked up this 500ml bottle from a well-known supermarket chain for £1.75. And generally speaking, it's available for a similar price point no matter where you go. It may even be part of a multi-pack deal, and often you'll find supermarkets or other shops selling it as part of a 4 for £6 deal. So on that sense, it's not especially expensive. It's a very high quality beer. I'd absolutely recommend this. It's a fantastic beer for the money. Who is it for? Ultimately, this is a beer, as we saw from the packaging, it's not trying especially hard to appeal to new converts. This is not the sort of beer that, from its packaging alone at least, seems to be appealing to people who don't think of themselves as beer people. This is a much more traditional drink. And as a result of that, it's going to appeal to those real ale fans. It is a real ale in a bottle. It's going to appeal to those card-carrying members. Having said that, as an introduction to real ale, I think this works really well. And so somebody who's perhaps tried a lot of very hoppy beers and is looking for something a bit different, somebody who's trying to broaden their experiences, as a place to start with bitters, with traditional bitter beer styles, I think this is a very good place to go. But that's about enough from me. I've got to go drink the rest of this now. What I want to hear from you is, what did you think? Have you tried Timothy Taylor's Landlord? Are you a big fan of this style? Do you agree with me on this beer being miscategorized with its labeling? Whatever your thoughts, let me know in the comments down below. If you liked this video, do give it a like, check out the rest of my videos, subscribe, and of course you can always go to brewreport.co.uk to see my full back catalogue of beer reviews, pub reviews, travel notes, the works. And until next time, happy drinking.